Hello everyone and welcome to my new video. And what is this video about? Well, before I tell you, please go and check out the official Ned Rush Ableton Live theme. Yeah, it's a bit of a work in progress and actually looks a little misty, but basically I've just made everything a little bit of a salmon-y pink with grey because I like that. There'll be a link in the description if you'd like to go and download that. Anyway, so what is this video about? Well, it's about creating your own slicing presets because I like to slice stuff up a lot on this YouTube channel, and I'm often slicing to one preset that I've made, and a lot of people watch the video and realize they haven't got it. And they say, why don't I have that? How can I make that? And I'm constantly baffled because, like, if you just Google how to make a slice preset in Ableton, it reveals all of this really useful stuff. I just don't understand how people just don't Google stuff and thinking, but it's actually somehow quicker to write a YouTube comment. And anyway, rather than be a cantankerous old fossil about this, I thought I would take some of that frustration and turn it into creative energy because creating your own slicing preset and indeed creating any of your own presets or your own defaults or whatever in itself is quite a satisfying and creative process. So we're going to do that. Now, I've actually trashed all of my slicing presets so I could start right from the beginning. But really, all you need to know to start with is you need to go to your user library and you need to go to defaults and then slicing. And anything that you save in there will be available as a slice preset. However, there are some boundaries. There are some things that you can't do, but there are also a really good handful of things that you can do that are really cool. Anyway, so I've got here my Amon Brock. Now, I can right-click that and go slice to new MIDI track. And then I can choose whether I want to slice it by walk marker, transient bar. I normally do transients. And then, so yeah, I trashed all of my presets. And these are all the built-in ones, which are all pretty good. And they're all quite different. So the built-in one slices to like a drum rack with each slice loaded into a single instance of Simpler with a load of stuff, macroed. This is what I'm sort of quite interested in. But there are some other ones as well. I don't really use them. I just make my own. But let's have a look. Slice to new MIDI track. And let's see what sampler robot is. So that's sliced to a single instance of sampler. So these are both like really interesting things, but we're going to make one from scratch. So if you want to slice to a sampler, you want to get a sampler, put it in here, and then you want to set some defaults. Now, I generally do things like turn the filter off. Maybe I might put the volume to 0 dB, but I don't do that so much these days. Having it at -12 is fine. Maybe I might want to set the voices to 1, re-trigger on or something like this. And just generally, like, it's just empty. It's not really doing anything. I mean, you can set some stuff here. Maybe I want the pitch bend range to be. Anyway, whatever. I'm happy with that. So, yeah, all I would need to do is go to, where is it? User library, slicing. And then I just drag that in there. And then it appears like this. And then I just hit enter. And now that is saved as a slicing preset. So if I delete this, go to this clip, right click it, go slice to new MIDI track, and then go choose transient and then go to sampler. There it is. It's there. I just put that there. So now I can do that. And then that's all sliced to an instance of sampler. That really is all it takes. No time at all. Right. But there are some other things that we can do that are pretty interesting. So for example, if we get a drum rack in here, make a drum rack here and go and get an instance of, let's start with, let's do it with sampler because I just found this out the other day and it's quite exciting. So I could again have a instance of sampler set up in one cell of a drum rack. I maybe don't want all these on. Again, same as before, I'll have the voices to 1. You know, maybe the sustains down or something, whatever. You choose the default state that you want your single slices to be in. Let's just stick it with something like this. And then again, I can do exactly the same thing. I can take this now and go to user library, slicing, drag that in there, drop it, and then this will happen. I'm going to say drum rack / sampler. Oh, that's an invalid name. Probably the slash there was a foolish idea. Let's try it now. Oh, okay. Let's try drum rack dash sampler. Okay, that's much better. Now I can delete that, trash this, and then when I right-click this and go slice to new MIDI track, I can go drum rack dash sampler, hit OK, and now it's sliced it, but each instance is in a single instance of sampler, which is pretty interesting because what you can do is that you can, let's maybe ping open the chain selector here. So these are all laid out on drum racks. Let me just turn my push on. Okay, push is on. Oops, sorry about the noise from the... Try and hit it quietly. So these are all laid out across the drum rack, loaded in their own instance of sampler, I should say. So this is very interesting because you could do a lot of things, like you could have a huge amount of samples loaded in on single slices. You could have separate processes of effects and stuff like this, which is what slicing to a drum rack is actually quite good for, because you can... It's very easy to like swap out other sounds. Maybe you've sliced a drum loop and you like the feel of it, but you don't like the snare very much. You can replace the snare with a snare from something else. And I'm very interested to see what this is going to be like in Live 12 with this kind of, hot swapping tag thing, where it kind of listens to the sound and recommends you sounds that sound similar. So it's going to be fun, sort of like chopping up breaks and then getting it to recommend a different snare or something. Anyway, that's totally something else. So yeah, this is pretty cool. You can slice to a drum rack with each slice loaded into its own instance of sampler. I think that's pretty good. You've got independent control over each slice, which is different compared to slicing to one instance of sampler where all of the kind of control that you have over the slices is global, which in some ways is quite nice. Reminds me a little bit of using Rex files in Reason on Dr. Rex or whatever, is that like it's essentially a monophonic like global envelope. So if I pull the sustain and decay and release down on that envelope, it's going to be applied to all the slices. Whereas if you go into a drum rack, you've got complete independent control over each slice. So that's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to keep those there. And let's maybe try and make another one. So I'll pull in a drum rack and I'll think about maybe doing some of my own macros. So let's pull in a simpler. Let's have simpler loading to classic. And then let's map some stuff. So, I like old school jungle or whatever. And maybe people who watch these videos like that stuff too. So there's like a couple of things that you hear quite a lot in some of that stuff, which is control over the start position, control over the transposition, and control over the filter cutoff. And perhaps like not really any control over the decay or the sustain, the decay or the release, but with the sustain all the way up. So I could like macro all of those things and have access to them when I want to like slice up stuff and in that kind of context and do that stuff with it. So we're going to do that right now. So I'm going to open the macros here. I'm going to go to start position and I'm going to say map to macro 1, sample start. I'm going to rename that. I'm just going to call it start pos. And then I'll go to the, actually we only want one voice, I think. I'll be interested to see what it does with warping. Hopefully warp will be off. Anyway, let's go to the controls tab and go to transposition. Let's map this to macro 2 and just call that, well, it says transpose, that's fine. And then let's do the frequency of the filter and the resonance of the filter. That all looks pretty good to me. Let's go with that. See if that works. I don't really want the LFO on. Volume at 0. Maybe let's set this to -8. Pitch envelope, we don't want that on. Maybe we could choose a different fit. Let's just set just for make it interesting. Let's change the filter type. Okay, so we've done that. Now, again, we go to user library, slicing, and then I'm just going to drop that in there like that. And it's going to ask me to name it. I'm going to call it drum rack simpler macros. Okay, let's trash that. Let's get our amen here, right click it, go slice to new MIDI track, and then choose transient, and then choose drum rack simpler macros. Okay. It's done it. So they're all sliced up into individual drum rack cells. And then I should have... Oh, the bloody snap is on. Okay, maybe we can just quickly turn that. Okay, so that's sort of... You know what? Actually, that won't do. That just won't do. Let's do that again. So let's go back. I deleted it, didn't I? Okay, we're going to do that again. We're going to have to do it again. It's not good enough. Sometimes you just have to do it again. Right, so let's get the drum rack in. Let's put it here. And then let's get an instance of simpler, put it in there. And then I'm going to choose classic. And then I'm going to turn snap off. Snap is off. And actually, we don't need loop. I don't think we need loop on either. So let's map the... Oh my God. Let's pull out these macros. Right. Let's map the start position to macro 1. Let's do the transposition to macro 2. The filter frequency to macro 3. And the resonance to macro 4. That's all good. Maybe we could do... No, I'm going to have the decay and the release all the way down and the sustain up. That's fine. LFO off, pitch envelope off. I don't want those things on. Okay, let's try that again. So we'll go to user library. Okay, and I'm essentially going to overwrite it with the same name, drum rack simpler macros. It's going to say, do I want to overwrite it? Yes, I do. I am perfectly capable of that decision. Right. So let's try that again. Let's trash that. Let's go to our clip, right click, slice to new MIDI track, and then go drum rack simpler macros. Okay. And then look. Yeah. So this is pretty good because, like, you know, straight away I could sort of do like some classic time stretching here. Let's pull in the pen. And very quickly, I can just go to that parameter, right click it and go show automation. Oh, not show automation. show modulation is grayed out. I've happened upon this before. Is it because record is on? No. Anyway, we'll do it in here. So we can go to the, see, now it says S start. And we can just sort of very quickly draw that in. It's loaded it in with warp on. That's interesting. Maybe it would have been better to have used sampler, but you don't actually get direct access to the start position in sampler. Well, rather, it's not mappable. You see how these things are kind of conundrums, and you kind of have to make decisions. You can't right click and go, no. I wonder why that is. You know what? That could be to do with dropping samples. Let's go to the drop it on drum rack. No, on device view. Simplest. Okay. Defaults for another time, I think. Anyway, that is pretty exciting, even if that didn't entirely work. So, yeah, warp is on. Anyway, you can see that. Basically, the point I'm making is that you can get very creative with what you want to macro, and then you can have access to those controls on each slice in your slice preset. Let's just go one step even further and see if we can use like grouping inside a drum rack. So I'm going to pull in a drum rack and I'm going to pull in simpler this time. And I'm going to set it to classic. I'm not really going to bother too much with all the other stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open everything up. All of this stuff down here. I've opened the device chain, the chain selector thing, and I've opened this thing here, which is the like the send and return chains. Now, if I right click this here and go create chain, and I'm just going to call this drum bus. I don't know if this is going to work. So if it doesn't work, you'll have learned that it won't work, but hopefully it will work. So I'm going to tell, basically all you need to do is just do it to one single instance. And then when you save it as a slicing preset, it's going to apply that to every single slice, which is pretty good. So I'm going to say in this first chain, route that to the drum bus, the drum rack A drum bus. Now that has been hard routed to this chain, which then goes out the drum rack master output to the track. Now I'm curious to see if it will do that for all the slices. Let's see if that does. Let's go to user group. Let's go to user library. Let's go to slicing, drag this in and call it drum rack drum bus. And delete that. Go to our clip. Go to slice new MIDI track. Go to make sure it's transient. Go to drum rack drum bus. It's bloody done it. Right, okay, so I'm going to turn this button off here. That way it won't keep selecting the... Oh, I didn't put an actual drum bus in it. Okay, we're going to have to do that again. Right, so... Right, let's do it again. Get the drum rack. Get the... get the simpler, put the simpler in there. I won't map anything. We'll just do the chain thing, turn all this stuff on. Okay, create a chain, call it drum bus. I'll just call it group this time. Go to the output, go to a drum bus group, go to the drum bus group, get the audio effect for the drum bus, get the drum bus in. You can put anything you want, EQs, things like that. If you want to group cells, this is pretty good. Okay, so I've put that in there. All right, so maybe I might want to say that I just want to map the transients. Okay. Let's try that again then. Let's go to user library, slicing, drag that, put that in that folder. It's going to ask me to rename it. I'm going to give it the same name, drum rack drum bus. It's going to ask me if I want to overwrite it. I'm going to say, okay. Now, let's try this again. Right click the clip, slice the new MIDI track, set like transient, whichever one you want. I'm going to choose drum rack drum bus, hit okay. Boom. Has it done it? No. Why hasn't it worked? Why hasn't it worked? Oh, it's loaded them all in slice. Oh, well, that's awful. Well, I've got to do it again, haven't I? Fucking hell. Okay, absolutely. This is the last one I'm going to get this right. Okay, let's go drum rack. Let's go. Okay, I'm going to put it in sampler because, yeah, I'm just going to do it in sampler. Right, okay, so I'm going to open all of these macros. Oh, not that one. Yeah. Open all of these up. Okay, create a chain. Gonna call it drum bus. Gonna route the first chain output to that. And then I'm gonna go to that chain with that. I'm gonna put my drum bus on, put the drum bus on there. And then for demonstration purposes, map that to macro 1. Okay, and then we're gonna go to user library, slicing. Put that in the slicing folder and I'm gonna rename it with the same name, drum rack drum bus. Overwrite the previous one. Okay, that's fine. Delete that. Delete these. Let's just clear everything up a little bit. Let's go slice the new MIDI track. Go to drum rack drum bus. Okay. Yes, that works. So that's good. That's good. It took a bit of time, but we're there. So I've sliced this up into a drum rack where each cell has loaded the slice into an instance of sampler, and then they're all routed to this track, this group track, which has drum bus on. So if I change the transient here, you can see it's doing it here. So that's like slicing stuff, but then being able to have chains of effects in there as well. Can you see how deep this shit is? Like, it's deep, man. Could probably do it with like reverbs and stuff. We could put beat repeats in there and then you could macro everything. And, you know, drum racks are just really, really, really good. I will personally always prefer to just slice to sampler. But, you know, if you're kind of like, you're slicing stuff up and you're kind of like, you know what, I really want this. I'm always doing this. There's a point when you realize that you're always doing stuff. And if you're always doing stuff, then maybe it's a good idea to put the work in to having it available so that you don't always have to do it. It's just ready, you know. And I mean, you know, this is taking me 10, 20 minutes to do all this. You could make so much stuff if you wanted to put a couple of hours in, or you could just put 5 minutes in and just get everything where you want it so that you don't have to be thinking, oh my God, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, whatever. Very creative. Lots of possibilities. I can't really think of anything else to demonstrate. I mean, there are some cases where certain things won't work. So, for example, I think if you, let me think about this. I think it will work if you do, actually, let's maybe think about this. Let's do it with an instrument rack, and then let's get a instance of sampler, put that in the instrument rack, and then see if we can macro some of this stuff. So let's just do something really basic. Let's just go filter. Let's map the, turn that key down. Let's map the filter frequency to, just for demonstration purposes. And then let's take that, go to the user library, put that into slicing, and call this sampler rack filter. See if this works. Let's delete that. Let's delete that. Let's go to this clip, right click, slice new MIDI clip. Let's go sampler rack filter. No, it did not do it. Could not use preset sample rack. So there are some things that you can try and it'll go, no, sorry, don't speak that. So you kind of have to there's a lot of trial and error. That's basically what I'm saying. You have to spend some time fucking it up to realize how to not fuck it up. But you're pretty safe with using a single instance of sampler or using either simpler or sampler in one cell in a drum rack. If you tried things like maybe having multiple instances in a chain, I think it's going to say no. So really, I guess it's all about the is paradigm the word? The paradigm of thinking simpler or sampler in a drum rack or just sampler. Both have their pros and cons. Slicing to simpler in a drum rack means that you could have control over individual slices in terms of their effects, but they could also be warped in time to the tempo. So when you, of course, I'm sure as we all know, you can actually just slice to simpler as well. And then you can have warped slices. Whereas if you slice to sampler, they're not warped, but you've got some really nifty stuff, like you've kind of got lots of global control over the whole group of slices, but you've also got things like polyphonic modulation and all this sort of stuff. I mean, I could just keep going on listing the comparisons. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of those presets I just made, where are they? I'm going to take all of it, even the ones that, we don't want the ones that don't work. These three were the ones that worked, weren't they? What's this one? Yeah, that's the one. But yeah, so I'm going to put all of these in. Oh, I can't load them in like that. Put one there, one there, one there, and one there. Delete these things. So, yeah, there you go. So there are some presets that I've made. I'm going to go and put those on my Patreon now, where if you would like to support me, I will make that available for download, or you can just do it yourself. By the way, there's loads of stuff on Patreon. I've got about 800 posts and about 200 of them are all to do with Ableton. There's stuff to do with MaxMSP. There's loads of samples. I'm putting samples packs on there, you know, all kinds of things. And there's loads of cool people hanging out there. It's the spot. It is the spot. And of course, you would be going towards supporting me and this channel, and I am eternally grateful for all of that. So there you go. That's how you make a slice preset. Never ask me again, okay? I'm sick of it.